You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Darryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. And of course, sorry that we had to move the show again. It's funny, too, because I had just jumped into the Discord yesterday afternoon. I was all like, hey, see you guys tonight for the review or whatever. And then, of course, we had to move it. But we're here now. We're on Mondays anyway, so I guess I took the mystery out of what we're going to talk about tonight. So tonight, we're going to be reviewing the Acolyte Episode 5. So, essentially, again, as usual, you and I will give our little couple of sentence or whatever overall thoughts, and then we'll really get into it. I mean, for me, finally, this is what this show should have been from the beginning. Like, you know, it was some of the best action, still some, it's funny because I was actually tweeting a couple of people in, that are various Star Wars fans and everything like that. And it's funny because I actually got a little bit of grief because as much as I really enjoyed this episode, I still, was pointing out some of the things that were maybe negatives about it. And of course, everybody's like, toxic fan base once again. And I'm like, no, this is the thing that I have to clarify all the time. You can be critical of something without necessarily it being toxic. It's almost like it's gone too far the other way. So, without getting too deep into it, overall, I really like this episode a lot. I love the action. I mean, the whole thing was practically nothing but action, actually. And there was a little bit of like an expanded universe / new canon thing that appeared that I only have seen a few YouTubers talk about it, but it's huge. So now you go ahead and give your little couple of sentence blurb.
It was all right. No, actually, I really enjoyed this one.
I was gonna say, I'd be like, dude, what do you want?
What is it gonna take? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. No, it's like everything that's wrong with Star Wars.
Right.
I'm
the toxic one. Right?
Yeah, you're the toxic one. No, that's Visions.
No. That's definitely toxic.
Yeah.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. The action was phenomenal. Well done. Cinematography was really good on this. I like the dialogue was even better. I mean, even though there wasn't a whole lot of it. There are some things that's like, of course, it was kind of like, oh, this is cheesy, However, I think that this is by far like the best episode. It gave us a lot of weight. It answered a lot of questions, namely some of the things that you were right on from our last episode. So kudos to you, Eric.
Yeah.
And the rest of the fan base for figuring some things out. And
well, I mean, before I take too much credit for this, they were heavily telegraphing that. It was like, I mean, the thing is, and this is where some of the, because again, after because I watched the episode early, I did not have a chance to do a rewatch and take extensive notes. I mean, fortunately, I didn't really need to. This is a pretty straightforward episode that has some cool stuff, and it's really easy to talk about. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of, minutia where you had to take notes. But the thing about this, though, is that some of the reviewers actually were criticizing the writing precisely for that, right? Because it's like, they found it to be a little bit lazy. I mean, one of the things, it was another theory that I had that I'm like, okay, well, it's either, I mean, the actor's name is Manny something. We all call him Smilo Ren, right? So I basically was predicting last week that he was probably the one because they were heavily telegraphing that in the last episode. But the other theory that I think would have actually been a lot cooler is if it had been one of the mothers that had been Smilo Ren.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
actually would have been, I think it would have actually tied things together a little bit better, and it also would have added more weight to, what episode was that, 3? Or no, 2,
When
wasn't it?
they
With the whole where
are
they
you
were
talking about
dealing with the witches and the, we
oh
are
yeah, yeah, yeah.
one, we are many, that
Jenny,
stupid
yeah.
chant and all that. Yeah, I think that was episode 2. So it would have actually lent a lot more weight, I thought, to that episode too, if Smilo Ren had turned out to be one of the mothers. But I was okay with this. I mean, in fact, one of the things that I was thinking during the whole thing, it's like when you just watching him stand and he has his head, he's like a serial killer. I mean, like I
Well,
was,
yeah.
I was getting chills, man.
Well, it's funny because I was noticing, trying to notice every little thing, and there's a lot of little things I've noticed in this. One was that he does that whole Michael Myers head tilt thing,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
thought was like from a horror movie. So I'm like, okay, I see the influence they brought there. Um, I love from the combat perspective. Uh, I love his style
Mm-hmm.
because it's very Japanese. So it's more ninjutsu and I want to say Kempo. So I think a lot of that in the fighting style as far as his character.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas and the Jedi of course have more of a samurai kind of style, which I like because those two actually were at war like in the olden days. And that was the thing about ninjutsu is because it's very unorthodox, it almost doesn't have rhyme or reason. There's not a specific form like a samurai has, like certain forms like we all talked about, like we covered this before, the different Jedi forms and how they're used. Ninjutsu is kind of basically you kind of take what you can get and you try to create different things. So I love that because Yord brought that out when Osha was asking like, "Well, who is he?" He's like, "I don't know. His fighting it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have rhyme or reason. It's just kind of almost like an erratic type thing."
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost kind of how I want to like Kylo. See, this is kind of what I want Kylo Ren to be.
Yeah,
So
it would
even
have
though
fit.
everyone's
It
been
would
calling
have
him
fit his
Smilo Ren,
personality.
but it would have fit his personality more. And that's what I'm saying. Like this was a really cool.
Well, what's funny
Um,
about, like, so apparently, and of course people are using this to go, oh yeah, nobody likes the show or whatever, but that helmet, they had released it so you could buy it, and I guess it like
oh
sold
wow,
out immediately.
wow,
But that makes sense because I always thought it was kind of like a chilling, like I said, I mean, it's very much like a Michael Myers, Jason, you know, masked serial killer type of vibe, and the way that he would stand, and there was just like this overall really heavy creepiness to him that was kind of
he will float.
scary. Yeah.
Even his appearance, like how he just kind of just floated into the
Mm-hmm.
thing, or when he ignited the saber really close to her face, and just it's very
Which, of
I want to say
course,
monotony,
well, the
but
nice thing about it, since you brought that up, that's how we ended the last episode. It was nice too that
mhm,
they did what you had hoped. You ended the last show
yeah,
by saying, "Look, I hope they pick this up immediately after they left off. Not,
mhm.
let's not do like a day later or something stupid."
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Like we need to see what happens. Um, did you? So there's a couple of things about this. One thing I really loved. I don't know if you picked up on it, but Osha, when she kind of comes to after she got basically force pushed into like a tree or something, you could hear like, well, first she sees his dead body, which is like laying next to her, which I thought that was kind of cool and creepy. But you can hear the lightsaber duel going on in the background, but you can't see it. You
Mm-hmm.
just hear the sounds that it's making. It's kind of faint, but I just love the way it sounded. The sound design on this was really cool. I really love that aspect of this. What did you? So we were talking about his helmet, but he also has like these gauntlets on his wrist that it seems like this thing is made out of Beskar because it
No.
can't cut
And
through it.
that's no, no, no. That's exactly what I wanted to bring up that a lot of people
Okay.
missed. And again,
Is
it's
that an
easy
expanded
to
universe thing?
well, so it started in the expanded universe, but new canon adopted it. So Thrawn
Okay.
mentions it in, I think, the second Thrawn novel. It's not Beskar. It's something called cortosis. And what cortosis is, it's another type of metal that's similar to Beskar, but what it does is it shorts out lightsabers. So if a lightsaber comes
Mm.
into contact with it, it shorts it out for like 30 seconds or whatever. So
That's why they keep having those. Okay.
yeah, if you notice, like their
That makes
lightsaber went out and then it came back later. And it's funny because I'm like, no, they didn't do that. Especially that like one really sweet, because his helmet's made out of that too, right? Where he like headbutted that
Mhm.
lightsaber and shorted it out.
Yeah.
That was supremely cool. And it was funny because a friend of mine he lives out of state, so I keep in touch with him, through Facebook. And he watches the show sometimes. He messaged me immediately after the episode dropped. He's like, "Hey, was that cortosis?" I'm like, "Yeah." That was It's like, I
Wow.
think so. Like, it wasn't until a few days, like a day or two later, that I started reading more about it, and it was confirmed by the powers that be
Mhm.
that that's what it was. So yeah, I mean, I was absolutely freaking out about it because I thought the same thing as you did at first. When the lightsabers just didn't seem to damage, I thought, okay, he's using Beskar. But then when it had that effect on them, I'm like, I think that's cortosis. So
Okay.
yeah. And again,
Nice.
that was an expanded universe thing until they did bring it in. Like, it was mentioned periodically through some of the new canon novels. Particularly, I remember Thrawn brought it up. I just don't remember if it was in like the first or second novel, or if it was I mean, it could have even been like in the Ascendancy novels, which I'm only like halfway through the second one. So, but no, because I remember him mentioning it. So yeah, that was a nice touch, and that again is showing that Leslie Headland really is kind of a super fan of Star Wars. That she's bringing that
Mhm.
in, even though, as you pointed out, it was interesting because they made such a big deal about her being the showrunner, and yet, yeah, she hasn't directed. She Does she even write it?
Yeah. No,
Somebody
not. I mean,
else wrote
it's
it,
not so
right?
hard. Well, so a couple bunch of other people have written because I watched the credits and there's a bunch of other people who written the episodes and direct, but she's definitely the executive producer of it.
Oh yeah, and of course, Filoni, you know, keeps his hand
Yeah.
in it a little bit. Ted Adam Green's with us. He says, "Hey guys, hey Ted,
Hey,
glad you
hey,
can make it,
what's
man." I
going on?
mean, I felt so bad too because when I was changing the time, last night
Mhm.
to do it tonight, he'd already like chatted in. I'm like, oh man. I always see that's when I feel really bad when we don't find out we're gonna move the show until like within an
Yeah,
hour, because I know at that point that people are waiting. And look, I mean, we respect you guys' time. I mean, if you're taking time out of your schedule to watch our show live, we do appreciate that, and try to show some
absolutely.
respect. So I mean, unfortunately it couldn't be helped, obviously, but it was nice that Ted actually gets to join us again tonight when we're actually doing the show, so that's cool. But yeah, man, I mean, the other thing that I thought was interesting was when oh man, I keep forgetting the color. What's a little blonde chick's, the little plucky girl's name? Uh
And Jackie?
yes,
Jackie?
Jackie. Yeah. I mean, when she got like stabbed 3 times.
Oh yeah, by
I'm
Master.
like, all
Yeah,
right, there's no coming back from that one. And that was another thing that
right.
really surprised me too, is that they killed her off and killed Yord off.
Well, I was about to say, like, and I'm glad you brought this up because this is going to be my questions to you. Like, how do you feel about? Because remember before this even started, we went through all the character lists, like, okay, who these people are. These people are gone, like already. So,
Oh
like,
yeah,
we never
Carrie Ann
really got a
Moss's
chance.
character was the
And we
oh,
got we lost in Dermo.
that's it.
We lost Tobin. We lost or Torben. We lost him. We lost um uh Kalnaka.
Mhm.
And so, like, it's weird because it's like, okay, well, now only people got left is, oh, and Yor now. Only people we have left is Saul. So it's kind of a weird thing, and it makes you wonder, like, okay, were they setting that up because they're bringing in more people from the High Republic that we know?
Well,
Like,
they did
I mean, we already
say,
saw the Kiadi Mundi, but Vanessa Rowe now, should she get back into it?
well, I mean, Vernestra, and she's obviously more or less been in the thing for a few episodes now. But
Hmm.
the thing is, she did say, I think it's during I don't think she was meaning like a hypothetical season 2. I think she did say, like, in later episodes, we were going to see a few more familiar faces from the High Republic. So, like, the actual books and comics and all that stuff. We might see
Hmm.
one or two more. Which, I mean, that would be interesting because obviously there were some people that she created, and now we see why, right? I mean, they're just basically going to die. It's almost like
Hmm.
cannon fodder, no pun intended. But and again, and I don't actually mind that. I mean, I did actually like Yord's character. It's funny because when the first episode dropped, or the first couple episodes dropped, I mean, everybody was just like up in arms and hating the show. I basically commented on on some, social media group or something, that Yord was probably one of my favorite characters out of this bunch, and there was all these like laughing emojis, right? Everybody was laughing at me about it, but I liked Yord's character. I really did. I mean, I thought that he had some of the stoicism that you see in a lot of the High Republic Jedi. Again, it's like, I wonder how many of these people that are saying all this stuff actually read a lot of those books, or any of them. Because obviously people are going to be judging the show based on the merits of the show, as they should.
Hmm.
But when some people have chatted in and said, "Oh, you guys are, maybe a little forgiving of this point or that point," a lot of it has to do with the fact that because we're into the overall story and the advancement of that story, I think it's easier for us to maybe forgive some things. Whereas somebody that's coming from outside of that, and they're only judging the show based on the merit of the show, they're probably going to be
Hmm.
a little bit harder on it. Not that we're
Well, I
not.
mean, well,
But
yeah.
you're pretty brutal.
Yord. I mean, Yord is just, to me, he's just a cornball to me. I mean, that's just the best way I can put it. Um, Even like, okay, civilian to the ship, like, okay. It just seemed very, I
Yeah, I
mean,
know.
I
He's
know Saul said it first, but I like, and it's funny because coming from Saul, it sounds more authoritative and it sounds more real. When he says it, it just sounds like, okay, you little dork, shut up. Um, and he just doesn't have any gravitas to me. He doesn't have any presence. He's just kind of like, and he's always kind of seemed aloof. I think that's the word I want to really want to use, because Jackie was always like putting him in check. But one of the things that I'm very curious about, and I want your take on this, and if you guys are watching, definitely we'll put your response in the comments. So again, I keep bringing this up because I think it's a very relevant thing. This is still the High Republic era where the Jedi are supposed to be at the zenith of their power. This, now he's called himself a Sith, which that's another thing that we got to talk about. But he's now dubbed himself somewhat of a Sith Lord. How powerful is he? Because he's taking out like multiple Jedi, not just like regular Jedi, but he's got Jedi, he's got masters and Padawans that he's just like clearing out by himself. So I'm wondering, like, how powerful is this guy?
well, and again, I mean, before I get that, Ted wants to say a proper rip Yord. We barely knew you, buddy. Well, I think one of the key takeaways on this is, if you really analyze what he would said, some would call me a Sith, or you might call
Yeah.
me a Sith. He
Hmm.
I think the jury is still
True.
out on whether he's a true Sith or not. Because he goes on to do this whole little, all we want to do is exist and be able to use the Force in the way that we see fit. and not be bothered by you guys,
Mm-hmm.
which would be fine, except for the fact that the way that you're wanting your freedom is you're offing all these Jedi Masters. It's like, well, dude, we can't really leave you
Mm-hmm.
alone if you're going to be doing stuff like this.
Right.
I mean, there's like, you're not, I don't know. I don't think that you're making a very good case for this whole, I want to be left alone thing. I mean,
It's
that's
alternative lifestyle that you're trying to
right.
go after, so to
Right. He's
speak.
not, I would say that the witches from episode 3, they were
Right.
the ones that were more like, hey, we're going to go do our own thing. We don't have any interest in the Jedi way or
The
any of that.
politics and any of that.
Right,
Yep.
exactly, or the Republic, exactly. They want to separate themselves from that, use the Force, or as they call it, the thread, in their own way. But this guy, he's basically making that same case, but it's like, okay, you're trying to put this whole like the Sith are being persecuted by the Jedi kind of thing, but that's that's because you're doing stuff like this.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be like after the Manson murders, it'd be like, listen, we just want to live on our ranch and do that. It's like, okay, well that's all well and good, but you can't be going into town and then like offing
Yeah, no,
families,
often people, right.
It's like there's got to be a little bit of a give and take on this now. So
By
I
take, we
think
don't mean lie.
I think it is key that he says that you might or some might call me a Sith.
Right.
Because I still wonder, number one, if he's even a Sith at all. If he's just, look, you Jedi are so dogmatic that this is how you would see me, basically, right? I mean, he's got the mask, got the cape, checks all the boxes.
The blade, the red blade.
Red blade,
killing
yep.
people,
Yep.
evil intentions, Now, I kept noticing that, it seems as if he and Saul have a checkered past where they know each other in a different way. So that's what I'm really curious about as well.
I know. Well, I mean, that's what I think there's a couple of things that I'm thinking on this. Number one, first of all, I still don't know if he's the master or the apprentice. I mean, I would agree with you though. If he's the apprentice, it's like, dude, the master's got to be like off the charts powerful then.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this guy, this guy's, he's demonstrating.
Yeah, he's kicking some butt.
Now, granted, part of that is he's got that cortosis armor that's basically shorting out all the lightsabers. So there is that, but still,
yeah, it's giving him somewhat of an advantage. Yeah,
he's a good fighter, and much like you, I also enjoyed a lot of the hand-to-hand combat that we saw, and just the overall fighting. I mean, look, I'll put it out there, man. I think that this is some of the best lightsaber duel fighting, all that we've seen in the entire franchise.
It's I would rival it with the prequels, definitely. I think his battle with Saul is kind of what I wanted between Mace and Palpatine. Just the style. Now we got a lot of cool stuff with Yoda and Palpatine, that was awesome. But I think with Mace being the type of fighter that he is or warrior that he is, I wanted to see a little bit more in that battle.
Well, I think you might have if it, because don't forget, this Manny guy is like, probably half the age of Ian McDiarmid.
Well, yeah, Ian McDiarmid, yeah.
So,
but I'm saying they could have used a stunt double. Or
well, yeah, they could. But then again, you're talking back in like 2005. I mean, even if you look at when they used that stunt double for Dooku, I mean, it was really impressive for the time, but you could tell that was just a CGI face on top of a dude flipping down. So I don't really know if the technology was there at the point where they could have done like a whole duel. But you're right. They could have done one of the traditional, you get some dude that looks like him, put the wig on, and just show him from different angles or whatever, and then you cut the close-ups of McDiarmid and do it that way. But I think that what Lucas was going for was a little bit more of a, like a wide shot kind of a thing. But I agree. I mean, that's basically what we thought too. I mean, we did get that with Yoda and Palpatine, but this was actually a really cool fight sequence. And it went on forever. I mean, I just thought some of the stuff, where they had the big giant bugs and all that. I mean, I think that, you know, the only thing that I'll say that's critical of Yord in a lot of ways is the fact it's like, dude, I mean, she's telling you to put out the lightsaber and you're just, it's like, really?
Or he's like, don't make me subdue you because I will. Like, okay. Like, I don't know. I think OSHA can take you, dude. I mean, quite honestly. But
I don't know.
it's
I'm going by. I mean, yeah. Look, I'll admit that the way that they presented it, it's probably. But I mean, if you're into, and this is why I think I can overlook some of this stuff because I'm looking at what the story is calling for. Now granted, they may or may not be very successful from an execution standpoint. Where I agree, they have made Yord a little bit more aloof. They have made him a little bit cornball at times, but my Canon colored glasses are usually on when I'm watching these things, and I'm focused on what it's supposed to be. And so even though in the back of my mind, yeah, I'm cataloging all this stuff, definitely. Especially because we do this show. Right? Like if we didn't do this show, I wouldn't be taking notes during the for future reference so I
right.
can review it in my leisure. No, I'm taking notes because I want to be able to present these things to you guys to give you guys a fair and accurate review. Because there is, and you and I always do a good job at this, I think. We always separate, okay, here's how it actually is. Here's what you're looking at, right? This is objectively the quality of the show or whatever. And then on the other side, there is our enjoyment of that show. And so a lot of times what's happened in this particular show, it was similar to Ahsoka that way too, where I can look and see, okay, this is what they're trying to put forward canonically speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can lock into that. And I can filter out all the other performance issues or writing issues, direction, that kind of thing. But I'm still cataloging it because obviously, I don't want to deceive myself either, and be like, oh, this is an amazing show. And it's like, well, but for this, with Yord's character in particular, it's a perfect example of that because I could see where, yes, there's a lot of issues with what they were trying to do versus what they actually did. But because I understand the story and I understand what's going on, I could put that aside for my enjoyment of it, but yet still present it to you guys as like, hey, here's a bunch of weaknesses of the show. And so maybe that's why I'm able to see past it. And that's probably why I can say that he's one of my favorite characters because, I get it, man. A lot of people are looking like, really? You seen Star Wars before? Like, but you have to understand. I mean, I take in a lot of the extra stuff. It's not just the shows and the movies. I'm reading a lot of the books. I read a lot of the comics. I've been doing that for like 40 years. So, I'm not basically saying, I mean, look, like John Campea, for instance, he basically announced, he admitted that this is some great action, whatever. He's out. He's like, I'm done. I'm not even going to watch this show because I'm not going to, what did he call it? Like hate watch something. He's not going to watch something that he doesn't like just to review it. It's what you probably wish we would do with Visions.
You're here.
But, so when episode 6 comes out tomorrow, yeah, I'm not, he's one show I'm not going to be able to watch, just out of curiosity. But I think that that's the reason why I can separate those things. I can say, okay, because look, I mean, it's not like this episode was without issues. It's just that, and this I think is true for both of us, is that there was a lot of really good stuff that we can latch onto.
Yeah, I think it was more to notice the appetite, for this. Do you feel like they're getting rid of the characters because we never got a chance, like, I know we brought this up earlier, but I'm just saying, we never got a really chance to hear from Torben. We never got to hit, we never got to see Kel Naka do anything. I mean, it was kind of like, what?
Well,
I don't. I guess my thing is the marketing of it. It's almost like Captain Phasma
I
all
knew
over
you were going
again,
to say
and
that too. I was waiting. I'm like, okay, Phasma reference in 3,
yep.
2.
Yeah, because it's like you're putting these characters out here in the forefront. I mean, at least Jackie, at least we got a chance to see her personality. We got to see her fight. And I actually liked her character. She reminds me, like you said, a lot of Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, like a young
and
Ahsoka, exactly.
yeah, so I really enjoyed her character. Even when she was hopelessly trying to handcuff, May, it was hilarious. Like,
Well, that's
just
another look. I mean,
handcuff her and then read her the rights. Don't
yes. Well, first of all,
you know?
why is there some sort of a Jedi Miranda rights? Like,
Well,
what?
because
I mean, look,
because
I
they're
know
kind
there's,
of a
and I know there's, yeah, and I get that, and I know that there is precedence for it because Mace sort of, kind of did that in
mhm.
Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, dude, it's kind of like you said, man. She's got like one cuff. She's pausing to like finish this whole thing. It's like, dude, that can actually wait. Okay, I
Yeah.
mean,
This lady's killing Jedi, mind
yeah, it's like maybe I don't know, connect the handcuffs, and then if you wanted to bore her
Right.
with all of the bureaucratic nonsense as you're walking her back to wherever, then do it. Yeah, that was one thing that definitely just like I'm like, oh, here we go. Here comes the Acolyte,
Right.
Here's that
Exactly.
stellar writing we've all come to expect.
What did you think about that whole thing where, like, as May's running through the forest and then he's talking to her, but it's like his face is like super like close to the lens as she's running, and he's talking like, uh you're weak or something like that, and as she's running, and it's that style of cinematography. How did you feel about it?
Well, I thought it was, it is what it was supposed to be, right? It's a little off-putting. It's supposed to, I think, just shake you up a little bit. I mean, I didn't get the vibe that, you know how sometimes people do these kind of things just for the sake of doing it to be artsy or whatever.
Mhm.
I didn't really get
Right.
that. I didn't get that from this. Like I
Okay.
said,
Did you think it was stupid?
I didn't really think it was stupid. I thought the witch's chant from episode 3 was stupid.
Oh, that was definitely that.
I thought that, you know, her half handcuffing her and then reading all these rights. I
Yeah,
thought that was a little
that
stupid,
was
but
stupid. Yeah.
because that was stupid even from an in-universe thing, right? Like some things are stupid more from like a writing perspective or whatever. That was just stupid all the way around.
Mhm.
I mean, that was just really, really, really dumb. Voyager actually joins us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's good to see Voyager back. He quotes, "He gets into your head and stays there." And that's really one of the things that I thought was just really interesting and fascinating about this. And it's funny that you brought up that point, right? Is that
Mhm.
this guy is sort of what you expected Kylo Ren to be.
Yeah.
I mean, completely. This is,
Now,
and don't get me wrong, I actually love the Kylo Ren character, but this is like that serial killer chill version, whereas Kylo's more like an unhinged, just erratic kind of a guy, right?
do you so with the is it called cartosis?
Yeah.
The metal?
Yep.
Okay. So it also apparently shields you from the Jedi probing your mind
Well,
as
and I
well.
did, and I was thinking like, oh, hello, Magneto helmet, but
Right, exactly. Exactly. I was like, okay, what, isn't that Professor Xavier now?
it's
Like,
like,
all
yeah,
right.
exactly. It's like, all right, here we go. All right, whatever. I'm gonna overlook it. Peter Griffin. It's like all of our favorites are back. He says Kamir and Soul made Anakin versus Obi-Wan look like amateurs. Oh, I only kid prequel kids. Nah, I agree with that, man. I mean, I actually think that, but again, you also have to look at the time periods, and I think that that's where things were accurately being done, right? Because Daryl pointed it out. This is actually, even though it's the tail end, still the High Republic era. This is like the absolute zenith of the Jedi's power. So it totally makes sense, I think.
Yeah, to his point, I would say I wouldn't say that, and I know he's only joking.
Yeah, he's joking.
However, yeah, I know, but I think the stark differences between the two, and I love them both because for what they're supposed to be, they nail it. So, Anakin and Obi-Wan is more of an elegant dance.
Yeah.
I mean, they're practically almost like ballroom dancing with lightsabers in a way. And one, because they're best friends and they're like brothers, so they
Yes,
know
I
each
was
other
just gonna
so
say that. They
well.
know each other, the
So,
one trained the other.
yeah, so it's like I know what you're going to do before you're going to do it, type thing. But the other part about it is that because at that point, things are a little bit more refined, and you have to remember that they're both going based upon an art form, right? So there's a specific style that they're going against. Where this is between Khmer and Soul, it's more of a street fight
Yeah.
with lightsabers, if you will. So this is more just a like, all right, you walking down a dark alley and you run into this guy, and it's like, all right, I gotta stand my ground here. That's what this, and it's delivered so well because it feels like a street fight. It doesn't feel like a elaborate. There's no connection that we know of per se at this moment. It's more of just, all right, I gotta and Smilo Ren over here is basically I gotta do what I gotta do to get the job done. And that's what I really enjoyed about his fighting. So like I said, it's based upon an ninjutsu style where it reminds me of the scene that we just saw in Tales of the Empire when the Inquisitor says, "You're fighting like a Jedi. Don't be so predictable." And that's the thing about a Jedi; they're very predictable because they're following. Everything is about rules. This art form has a certain amount of rules. That art form has a certain, or that style, I should say, has a certain amount of rules. With the Sith, it's no rules. It's pretty much like you do what you got to do to get the job done, and that's exactly kind of how ninjutsu works. And if you follow that whole culture, the samurai follow that whole honor code of Bushido, and they're like, okay, you don't attack an unarmed opponent. That's what the Jedi are basically following. Whereas the ninja is kind of like, I don't care. It's I'm gonna do what I got to do to get you out of my way. So I really love the contrast between the two, and they do it very well.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I think that the reveal with Khmer, was great too. Voyager says the sound design of the punches was so good. You heard and felt the punches in a way I haven't seen
Hmm.
before in Star Wars. There just need to be more blood, like blood on the lips, brows, cheeks, etc.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair criticism. I mean, I guess you can, you know, get around that with like the whole power of these guys or something, but
Hmm.
yeah, no, that's fair. That's a fair assessment of that. And it's funny because you and I did talk about the sound design of this thing earlier, right? How
Yeah.
just everything about the sound design
Hmm.
in this was just stellar. Like it really took things a step up, and it's absolutely 100% true. Like you that's the thing that I was amazed. I mean, I'm watching this episode going, is this actually the Acolyte? Cuz
Yeah.
this is this
Kind of
this
good.
yeah, this is actually good, and it's doing some things the
That
best in the
others have
franchise. And
that
I'm like,
other episodes couldn't do. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
even the film. So I'm like, all right, I sort of hope that this is kind of an indication of things to come. Maybe it got a little bit of a slow start or something. I mean, all I could say is, I'll tell you this. I mean, we still have some more digging to do here in episode 5, but episode 6 has a lot to live up to now. It's
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that whole thing where she attaches that basically Pip to the back of Khmer and makes him, come this little beacon of light to attract those weird bug things. Again, you just got done wiping out a bunch of like high end Jedi. It just, although it was clever, don't get me wrong, it's a clever move. It seemed like that would have worked more for an acolyte as opposed to someone of his status.
Well, I mean, I think it really depends, right? Because he was caught off guard. And look, don't forget, he vanquished him. Like,
Yeah, I mean, he eventually won.
he did eventually
I mean, yeah,
win. He was
yeah,
just
of
sort of
course.
caught off guard, and I mean, he was attacked behind. I actually didn't mind that because I thought that it did like de-godlike these guys a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, because
Mhm,
that's one of the problems that faced obviously Luke Skywalker in the expanded universe is that, I mean, he basically became like a Jedi god. It was sort of like they had to create the
mhm,
Yuuzhan Vong to even give him a challenge. So it was
mhm,
nice that they still kept these guys. And I think the point is, and again, some people it might land with, others it might not have. But I think the attempt was to keep them grounded, to keep the whole thing grounded somewhat. I mean, you can't really say reality because we're talking about like magic wizards here, but I mean, at least
mhm.
within the reality of this universe. That's
Right.
where I think that they were trying to go for. And like you said, it was a clever move. I mean, the thing that actually bothered me a little bit more, if we're talking about some things that were like, I don't know.
Mhm,
I mean, first of all, when May did the whole lightsaber haircut, I thought that was cool. I don't think it would
mm.
have, you know, I mean, if you looked at the motion she gave and then the haircut she ended up with, it's like, yeah, that wouldn't have
I
happened.
don't think that
But
happened. Yeah.
but it was a cool move, so I like that. But what really
Give
sort of took
yourself a
me out of it
lobotomy.
is, I'm sorry, Soul would have been able to tell that wasn't her, that wasn't
Yeah.
Osha.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
did
Like,
admittedly take me out of this a little bit.
yeah, because it's like you should sense that in the force that they're not the same.
Instantly. Like it shouldn't even be
Yeah.
any kind of an issue. Now, the one of the reasons why I gave it a little bit of a free pass is we might find out in the next episode that he knew that and he's just playing along, to
Playing
see
along.
what the end game is. And that's why it's like it took me out, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to criticize because again, that's one of the things that I have often told people with these serialized Star Wars shows. You really can't give full blown criticism until the last episode drops because
Right.
future episodes might inform previous episodes, and a criticism you might have in an earlier episode might go away after you see the later one and you're like, "Oh, now I have some context and everything else." That's why I actually made the argument was a couple episodes ago when we were reviewing it that if they're going to continue this more serialized nature, they really should almost drop these things all at once because they really are more, like 6, 8, 12 part movies than like a TV show per se.
Right. No, I agree with you. Um, but I think it's just kind of one of those things where you want people to constantly have to keep coming back to the well.
Well, you do,
Um,
and you want everybody to be talking about the same thing at the
Same
same
thing at
time.
the
I mean,
same
I
time.
get it. I'm
Yep.
just saying, if they're and look, I mean, it works. And as far as, by the way, the whole like blood comment and all that stuff, I
Hmm.
kept thinking to myself, what if HBO had made this?
Oh man, like this,
you
like
know?
House of Dragons or something.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Or a Game of Thrones type of thing. It's like, what if you basically had, that kind of thing. I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about like, gratuitous sex and just like over the top
Hmm.
violence or whatever, but kind of like what Voyager said, if you just, you elevate it a little bit, right? It doesn't have to be like crazy. And look, there are some really dark moments in this episode. Where I'm like, okay, that
One of my
was
cool
that was
favorite.
dark.
One of the cool things I love is when Kamir like he was fighting with the one Jedi and stabbed him, then grabbed the other one and pulled him onto the blade. Like that was his chef's kiss. That
Oh
was
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, I know. All right, Peter Griffin's got some. He says, I thought I knew Star Wars. I just learned Palps used a glamour to make him look like what he did in Episode 3. His real form was actually after the Mace fight. He just used that as an excuse to stay in his true form. Yeah, I've heard that. But I'm not. You're going to have to cite a source for me on that one.
Yeah,
Because,
because we kind of saw the transformation happen. So
I mean, it's
it's
possible. It is because, like I said, I've heard that before. He goes on to say, "Do you think Sol and Kamir are brothers?" I seen an interview with the lady all the guys hates, probably Leslie Headland. She said, "Keep an eye on Sol and not the twins so much."
well, Saul definitely has a lot of secrets because he's kind of like, I'll tell you when I get back. Like,
Oh yeah, I
he's
know
always,
this guy.
and you could, and then um, he's like, well, what type of, because like, Kamir is definitely hinting towards that. That's what I'm saying because like, what type of master hides himself from his pupil and like, well, you tell me, you know, or as if like, okay, you've trained me before, or we have a closer connection. But it seems like when he took off the helmet, Saul didn't really flinch too much, like a shocking thing, like you or how, or you know what I'm saying. So
Well,
it's
but if you think about it though, Sol did meet with him in the store when
Mhm.
they went to get May the first time. So
Right.
he saw him in his little bumbling Clark Kent shop owner phase too.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think the only I mean, it was kind of almost like a Scooby Doo reveal, Mister
But
Kim here or whatever. It's like, I
well,
mean,
but then it doesn't show that even in the shop scene though, you would think if they had a relationship, like Saul would have recognized
well,
who he
that's what I'm
was. And
saying. That's why I don't think. That's why I don't think he necessarily like. There was no reaction when he pulled the Smilo Ren helmet off, and it turned out to be Kamir, and it's not like a kind of a thing, right? Because he did see him in that
Mhm.
episode in the shop. So I mean, that would have been the moment, if anything, I would have thought. But because again, I think it would have been cooler if it had been one of the mothers or something like that. I think it would have been an interesting twist. But again, we don't know. Maybe the mother is behind all this, right? Like one of the mothers survived and trained up Kamir, and because we're assuming that Kamir is the master. But I still
Mhm.
say that there's a possibility that that's not the case, that he could actually be the acolyte. Because remember what I had said when I said that I thought that it might have been Kamir? I said that if he's the acolyte, it would make sense because the directive from the master, right, was kill these Jedi without drawing your weapon,
Mhm.
which is one of the reasons why, May would always go, attack me or something like that, right? Because that's kind of like, I guess, a
Yeah.
technicality. You attack me, I'm not drawing my weapon, right? But if you think about it, and this would actually be clever, so I don't know if they're smart enough to think this, or if they're even thinking this way. But I think what would be cool is if, Kamir's directive is to kill these Jedi without drawing a weapon. Well, he's technically doing that. He's using a surrogate. He's using May.
Mhm.
He is not drawing a weapon. So I think it
Well, at least
works
in
if
that
he's the
system.
acolyte.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, if it turns out that he is, if May is
The
the
guy.
acolyte, he's the master. I mean, it works that way too. I just think it would be cooler if we found that out. And there's still time because look, I mean, there's tomorrow and then we have 2 more episodes after that. So I
Yep.
don't know.
Well, speaking of which, what do you want to see tomorrow?
Well, I definitely would like very much for Soul to know that that's May and doesn't think it's Osha. That's like
Okay.
that's number 1 for me because it's really going to take me out a little bit if he's being duped. Because it's like, come on, dude. This is Force 101, and this is why I think a lot of people are having problems with this show. Again, Lucasfilm, not even so much Leslie Headland. I don't even think that she's necessarily... She seems almost surprised by all this. But Lucasfilm definitely is pushing this whole, you guys are toxic and you hate it because it's a queer-based show or something, right? And it's like, no. A lot of the people hate it because they think it's poorly written. And it's just, it's doing things that, you know, you're going beyond the parameters of what actually makes Star Wars Star Wars. You're just doing a really crappy job. So, I mean, you know, I think from that standpoint, I would love to believe that, you know, they're just going to write this thing to where Soul is in on it. But if not, it's going to take me out a little bit. As far as what else, I mean, I wouldn't mind a little bit more with Kamir, because again, remember what this show promised us. We were going to get things from a Sith perspective, and we haven't. I mean, we got it a little bit in this episode, but not the way it was advertised. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And the architecture,
Oh, the archaeological thing? Man, I can't say it either.
Right. Archaeological aspect of, because they're saying it's like almost like a doctor, but we would kind of say it's more like Dr. Aphra in a way.
Yeah, we said that. We said that's what they should do. If they're trying to do more of an archaeological thing, then just get Aphra, suit her up.
Right. But I mean, the fact that they're trying to go into that realm, it's like, okay, we haven't seen that yet.
Let me get this thing into Peter Griffin before you give your things. He says, is Kamir being able to force heal rare for a dark side user? I'm trying to think if there's been any instances that I can think of. I can't recall a specific example offhand. I don't think it's necessarily rare, but I don't think it's something that's really been dealt with all that much. Because in Lords of the Sith, you remember when Vader and Palpatine were fighting all those bugs? I think Palpatine had to heal them. I think that because, you know, there was like thousands. I mean, it was, if you read that book, man, I mean, it's just that whole bug onslaught when they were attacking Vader and Palpatine. I mean, that was insane. That was almost like a Starship Troopers type of scene or something. And they ended up winning. But the problem is that, you know, I think he had to heal. I'm not 100% sure. But what do you want to see on this next one? Then we even got a new chatter in here. It's cool.
I think for the next episode, I want to see Saul actually talk about, like, okay, who is this person? Like, you know, like, what secrets is he holding back? That's one of the main things. And then I want them to see how they're going to deal with the loss of all these Jedi that's kind of like under his command. Like, all right, what are we going to do about this now?
Time to go back to the academy. Just like, all right, who wants to do another mission with Saul? It's like, well, wait, what happened to all the other guys? Don't worry about that. Yeah, it's not important right now.
Didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Peter Griffin says, did you guys watch the Headland interview Meg showed today? She said Saul knows it's May. I don't know. I hope so. He was talking about Plagueis, kind of. Yeah, I mean, I haven't ruled out the fact that Plagueis could be the master, by the way. That's my theory, just so you guys know. Is that because Plagueis should be around. You know, we're only talking like 70 years before the Phantom Menace. So Plagueis should definitely be around. You know, who knows? Maybe Sifo Dyas is around too. All right, new chatter. Great Smoky Pokey. I like that one. He said, just subbed. So Soul absolutely knows that is not Osha. I hope so. I cannot stress enough how much I hope that's true. He always calls them each by name, but when he asked May, where is she? And May said, who? He said, your sister. Oh, that's a good point. He also says in prior episodes, he can sense Osha. Another good point. And then Peter Griffin comes in. I want Kamir to tell Osha his point of view of what happened to the witches and see if Osha starts to turn. Yeah, that's another thing, man. They brought up this whole, witch thing, like burning the town. And look, that definitely was never answered, right? Because you and I talked about Torben. Like, something happened that we didn't see.
Right, and see, exactly.
Because as soon as Torben came out of his little trance, she said something. That guy's like drinking poison instantly. You don't do that because nothing happened.
Right.
Just
take the cyanide.
Right. Exactly. It's just like, I mean, he sees her and instantly it's like, yep, I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill myself. So I hope so. I hope we actually get to see that, because there's a lot of things. And like you said, man, I mean, there's a lot of things that Soul is definitely keeping from everybody. And I just think that we're getting close enough now, because I honestly can say I have no idea how this is going to end. I mean, the season.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, man, I'm definitely interested and can't wait for tomorrow to see where it picks up. I want to see the how they're going to deal with the loss of all these, like Jackie, Yord, the rest of the crew, Kanaka. Like, I mean, this guy's taking out quite a bit of people.
Well, and as far as that answer goes, because that was something that you brought up at the beginning, and I never fully. You had asked me my take on some of it. I never even did it. I went off on another tangent, I think. I do remember them saying something about the fact that they are going to bring in actual High Republic people that we've heard of from the novels, like one or two. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. We just got used to him. Now, the whole Kalnaka thing doesn't bother me because, like I said in the last episode, he looked like Harry and the Hendersons.
Right.
And if you think about it, what's funny is, what episode did we see him in? Like episode 2 or 3 or something? Whatever the first episode we saw him. We've seen him in like 2 or 3 episodes. For like a few minutes each, right? I don't know, it seemed to me like his makeup looked worse in each subsequent episode.
Hey, he lives a hard life, man. That jungle, man, doesn't do well for your fur.
Well, it's just like, when you it's like 180 million. Where is this all going?
I know, man. I know.
I mean, it's like we've said, the fan films are done better. But again, we're keeping this positive because episode 5 was good. Episode 5, I think, lived up to things. Like I said, great action. The story was good. I mean, I was sitting there. It's funny. I was sitting there thinking to myself as I was watching it, like, man, I can't believe how much I'm enjoying this right now. I can't believe how good this is. And I couldn't. Okay, so Ted Adam Green basically says, thanks for another great episode, guys. Gotta head out, but see y'all next time. That's all right. We do too. It's getting to be about that time for us even.
Yes, sir.
Well, hold on. We got another one. Great Smoky Pokey says, for me, that episode 5 fight was the best ever. I had more audible gas from it than any other one. And yeah, earlier, I don't know if you were watching earlier, but yes, we have said that actually the action in this episode and the duels and all that were probably some of the best in the franchise.
Definitely better than Ahsoka's.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was, and Ahsoka was another one of those shows that had a lot of potential, suffered from some bad writing, direction, execution, acting. There's,
everything.
And of course, well, yeah, because even some of the story things, right? Because I remember we brought up the whole thing where, in the one episode, the Empire had completely infiltrated the shipyard or whatever, to the point where the one dude's like, for the Empire, and like goes and, tries to kill him or whatever. And it's like, you still have the bureaucrats basically going, we don't really think that you should be following up on this lead. We think you should be doing something else. Like, dude, you got Empire officers like infiltrating, and you're actually denying any investigation. See, that's the kind of in-universe poor writing that the core Star Wars fan base just rejects. And it doesn't matter how much Kathleen Kennedy likes to blame the fan base for being toxic. It's like, no. It's kind of like Uncle Owen said. What are you trying to push on us? Knew I'd be able to use that in something. Peter says, I like the Khmer tic-tac-toe on Jecki. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think a lot of that is because, look, we've seen people coming back from, a lightsaber stab. Miraculously. Like, that was one of the other criticisms I had back with Ahsoka, right? It's like Qui-Gon gets stabbed, he's dead. Everybody else seems to be able to get stabbed with a lightsaber now, and it's fine.
It's where you're stabbed.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Great Smoky Pokey. The introduction of Cortosis armor and effect was amazing. Yeah, we actually talked about the whole Cortosis thing. That was the thing that caught me off guard. That's the thing I brought up earlier in the show, actually. And we went deep into that because that was pretty cool. And that was highly unexpected. Again, I thought, okay, they're going to probably make it out of Beskar or something because that's like their new pet armor, even though that's also an expanded universe thing too. But the Cortosis thing, again, for anybody that thinks it was just an expanded universe thing, it wasn't. It was actually mentioned, and I think it was a second Thrawn novel, but it has been mentioned in new canon. Peter Griffin says, Khmer was just trying to help your stiff neck and went a little too far. Exactly. Some would call me a Sith, some would call me a chiropractor. It just depends on, what's going on, right? But again, I think that the show is on the right track now. I really hope that when we watch it tomorrow, we're not back here complaining about it.
Absolutely.
And I think that most Star Wars fans want to like these things. I mean, I think that's where I think Lucasfilm really has us all wrong. Don't get me wrong. Look, there's trolls in every group and of fans of any franchise. You're going to get that. You're going to get people that hate things just for the sake of hating it. I mean, The Acolyte actually started getting bad reviews before an episode even aired. And I'm not talking about from people that maybe got screeners or something. I mean, just like the general public, right? It's just like, oh, it's Disney Star Wars. It must suck. Well, unfortunately, for us, it was interesting. The first couple episodes, I remember you were really vehemently against it. I kind of liked it. We agreed that it had potential, though. So with episode 1 and 2, we agreed it had potential. Then episode 3 came out. And other than a few things like the silly chant and all that stuff, that was when both of us were like, okay, this is good. We're kind of on board with this now. Episode 4, well, we had some complaints about the last episode. We didn't think it was terrible, but it was just, whatever, right? It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. We're just watching people walking the whole time. This episode is like, okay, this is what this thing should be. This is what the Acolyte should be. So hopefully, tomorrow night, man. we're not back at it. Exactly. Right. Great Smoky Pokey says, 2 of the best deaths for sure. Jecki because it was so surprising, and Yord for how raw and visceral it was. That's a good point, actually. That was another thing too. And visceral is a great word.
It was like the Vader scene from Obi-Wan when he snapped that guy's neck with the Force.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's honestly, I'm glad you brought that up because that's kind of what this whole thing reminded me of.
Mm-hmm.
That was also something I would describe as visceral. He snapped the neck. He dragged that one dude like right out of his window, or whatever. I mean, yeah, that was. Dragonfly joins us and said, "Whew, I made it." Well, barely. We're actually wrapping things up. But hey, hit the like button though. You join, hit the like button, and then you can go back and actually watch the show. It's a beautiful thing about this thing being on demand. Because honestly, it's really cool that a lot of people are watching us live, especially considering we've had to move the show so much. And again, apologize for that. I appreciate when you guys look. If you hit the notification bell, you'll always know when we go live. So in addition to liking the video, hit the notification bell. if we have to move for any reason, because unfortunately it does happen to us, we're not full-time YouTubers. That's the dream. If we could get to the point to where we could do that, hey, we'll be rock solid and we'll even make more shows. But right now, sometimes, whether it's a work schedule, family stuff, it gets in the way. So sometimes we do have to move it. But you guys were here watching us. Great Smoky Pokey says, glad I found you then. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, I'm glad you found us too. And that's what I'm really hoping. I always say that people, once they join this community, they really like it. They really start to engage in it. We have a Discord, you guys. We continue the discussion a lot of times on Discord. You can join that, check that out. It's free to do so. There's no membership involved there. If you do want to throw us a couple bucks, we got the whole Buy Me a Coffee thing. There's a link in the description for that. And then, of course, share this with your friends, just on your social media. Just be like, hey, check out this show, because we would love to get more people on board with this thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that actually subscribe to us right now, but they're just not engaged, to be honest. You know how it is. I do the same thing. I subscribe to 500,000 channels and watch like 10% of them. But yeah, we're glad that you guys are here. And then, of course, usually we're on Sunday at 8, Monday at 8, and if all goes as planned, Sunday we'll be reviewing episode 6. If not, it'll move. Like today did, right? Because we're doing it on a Monday. Let me just get this last comment in from our good friend Peter Griffin. He says, what do you guys think is more likely? Saul dies or turns to keep the Sith hidden? Yeah, I've been actually hearing a lot about that lately. There's been a lot of people that have said that they think that Saul is going to go dark for some reason. What would be cool is if he was the master.
Oh, no.
You don't think so? Your eyes are like rolling so hard right now. Why? Do you think that would be a little too cliche or something? Or
yeah,
that not good enough for you? Just like
I'm just saying, it just wouldn't. It seems disingenuous to the character. That's all I'm saying. I think what I would probably rather see, like you said, I think now if you said the master was one of the witches, that could still be a possibility, and that would make more sense.
Yeah, that would make more sense, but let me just throw this little nugget out there. All right? Just saying. I agree with you. Because remember, that was one of the theories that I brought up earlier, was one of the witches. At first, I thought it would have been cool if, instead of Chimera, it had been one of the witches that was Smilo Ren. But now, if one of the witches is actually the master, and Chimera is the apprentice, that would be cool. The only I would agree with you with the soul thing. Except, we don't know what happened that night that the town burned.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't want to see him be the master, but I want him. I could see him being a conflicted Jedi, because that's not something we usually see. So, in that, we always know Jedi to be kind of more like the on the up and up, righteous, that type of thing, almost like your Boy Scout kind of person. With Saul kind of having this checkered thing, he's like, okay, this could cause waves. Let me just try to keep things quiet. It's almost like he's doing the wrong thing, but he thinks he's doing good because he's trying to, protect something, and ends up making it work. Like, see, to me, that would be a better thing than having him turn evil. But
all right, Peter Griffin has an off-topic thing. There's no such thing as an off-topic thing on this show. He says, did you guys check out Cobra Kai trailer today? I did. And it's funny because I just watch, whenever Cobra Kai is about to drop, it's one of our favorite shows on TV. In fact, when we do our general entertainment show, we'll probably go back and review like seasons of that. I mean, there's so much that we can do. We're toying around, calling it the Entertainment Exchange. It'll be like this show, but for everything, for every movie's television, books, whatever. So I went back like Saturday night, as I usually do, and I watched the previous season, because I always like to watch the previous season, because it's amazing, even though you remember, it's amazing how much you actually miss or you don't remember, right? So I went back, watched season 5, and I did see that the trailer dropped, and yeah, I'm primed for that. I can't wait. It's like a couple of weeks now. Then he goes back on topic. Saul was this close to cutting Kamir's head off. Yeah, it's true. That's true. I mean, it's granted you could say that he's trying to oversell it, but I don't know. I think I agree. He goes on to say, I hope my guy Kamir didn't mess up with the reveal and Plagueis and or Ten has to take him out for being exposed at the end. Well, I still say that it would also be cool if it was Plagueis that was revealed to be the master. We'll see. Great Smoky Pokey says, I hope they don't turn him dark. I like the thought of him and the other 3 Jedi doing something so terrible that it brought the Sith forward to take advantage. Well, that's actually another good way to look at this, is that their actions in the village might have been something that, brought him out. Brought the Sith out. But as we said earlier in the show, that depends on whether or not it's a Sith or not. Remember, the exact quote that he said was something to the effect of, I love it. I say the exact quote.
Exact quote. And then, yeah.
The exact quote was something like...
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything.
You weren't going to say anything? Well, look, we're being hypercritical here about the show. You might as well be hypercritical about that. It's pretty close, all right? The quote is really close. He either said something like, you would call me a Sith, or some would call me a Sith. But he doesn't really come out and say, I'm a Sith Lord, right? He's kind of like, well, it's almost like this is sort of like the closest thing to what I am. This is what you narrow-minded, dogmatic Jedi would call me. And then he goes on, with this whole tirade about how he and their kind just want to be left alone to, use the Force in their way in peace. And of course, earlier in the show, I brought up the fact, which that would be a little easier to do if you weren't out there killing everybody.
Right.
Great Smoky Pokey goes on to say, true, I'm even okay with Kamir being the first Ren. That'd be interesting too. I mean, there's all kinds of things that they could actually do. And again, this is also a very, very balanced thing, right? Because it depends on where they want to go with this. The next 3 episodes, including tomorrow's episode, are going to be very pivotal, in my opinion, because this is where it could be really cool or be really stupid. It's like, remember, there was, what was it? Was it one of the... Maybe it was season 3 of The Mandalorian. There was some show where we were on board with it kind of until the season finale, and then we're like, ugh.
Yeah, it might have been Mandalorian.
It might have been Mandalorian. It could have even been Book of Boba Fett, although we had some problems with that show too. Great Smoky Pokey says, sorry, I know I missed a lot. I joined late. Hey man, that's okay. That's what rewatches are for, and this is a general discussion, so we're good. Peter Griffith says, has Kamir killed any innocent yet? I haven't seen any evidence he kills for fun, just the Jedi and Padawan so far. Well, and keep in mind that this whole thing has also been centered around this fire, right? The village burning down. So it's like we're trying to get revenge on the Jedi that killed them. Kamir was only killing the Padawans because they were with these guys, right? I mean, they were attacking. I think you're right. I don't remember them killing anybody that wasn't related to this incident.
Well, I mean, like I said, innocent is a relative term though, because it's like for example, Kelnaka, like he had nothing to do with it. He wasn't even there. Technically, he's kind of innocent.
Yeah, but they wanted to kill him for some reason though.
They wanted to kill everybody who was there. That's the thing. It's like all of you who showed up we want you all to pay for what happened.
Are you sure
But
Kamako wasn't there?
he wasn't. I don't believe he was. Well, he might have been. He
I
might
think
have
he
been
was
there.
there.
But
Well, he
even
was.
though
You know what it was? He was there when they were originally coming to take them.
yeah,
But
but
I
when
don't
they
know
did
if, like, in the aftermath, like when the fire happened, I don't think we saw him. It might have been implied that he was there, though.
I don't think he was there. I think he was still tinkering with whatever he was working on by the ship.
No, yeah, maybe. Maybe. Great Smoky Pokey says he wasn't even going to kill the Jedi directly until May said she was turning herself in. Well, that's true. Then again, he wanted her to do it, though. Peter says the bartender saw Trinity saved him from May's knife. Well, I think that was just a flusher. I don't know if he was really going to do it or not. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I saw it. Yeah, I'm not really entirely sure the motivations yet, because, again, this is where I think we're going to need the later episodes for context. Because I think, particularly these next 3 episodes, I think that they're going to inform the first few episodes. Because one of the things, and I admit I've gotten sloppy at this, I used to do this like with Mandalorian and stuff, but I haven't done this like with Ahsoka or Obi-Wan or even Andor, where once all the episodes are there, go back and rewatch them more in kind of a binge style, like as one giant movie or something, because a lot of it, you know, you could really go back and you start to see like things that we were initially critical of because we're doing this, episode by episode. It's like you go back and you're kind of like, oh, you know what? This wasn't really a problem like I thought it was when I originally watched it, because you had the context now of all the later episodes. So we'll just have to see. But yeah, hopefully this is hopefully this one's gonna be good. Peter says hopefully the last episodes are mostly his POV. Well, it would be nice if they actually went along with the whole promise of this is supposed to be a Sith-centric show. It's supposed to show things from the Sith point of view. It's, you know, we haven't gotten that yet. It's just more Jedi stuff. And don't get me wrong. I mean, that's cool because it's a High Republic, and I actually like the High Republic era. But yeah, it's not what we were promised yet. So hopefully that happens. So hopefully you guys end up joining us next week when we review the episode. And again, hit us up on Discord if you want to chat about stuff. There's all kinds of different things and all kinds of different topics too. There's even a general forum topic where we can talk about music and, just like general movies, like sci-fi, a bunch of different franchises. So the Discord channel is growing and we're building it, and it's really a means for everybody to just go in there and hang out in between shows. So hopefully you guys join us for that. So I think that's going to do it for us for tonight. Thanks again for joining us and your patience and following us on whenever we go live. Again, in addition to subscribing and hitting the like button, hit the notification bell, because then you will be notified when we go live if there is an issue. But we do try to keep you guys informed in the community tab. Great Smoky Pokey says have a good one. And on that note, you guys have a good one too. I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Darryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.